Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Necessary Roughness. I'm joined today by Nick Winograd. It's just going to be he and I. So you'll hear a lot of our voices kind of as we go through Week 12 recap. And then, as I'm sure you see in the title, we're going to talk a little bit of playoff predictions, kind of based on where standings sit right now and how remaining schedules look. So um, we can kind of dive right into some recaps. And one I wanted to start with and kind of see what your thoughts were here, Nick, is it's actually two games that ended similarly. And I think you know which ones I'm talking about by now. It's those 2 point conversions that can sometimes be really divisive for some reason.
Mhm.
And they're kind of lumped in with that umbrella term analytics, right? And you see guys like Staley, Harbaugh, um, Doug Peterson maybe really hammer these kind of things and kind of form an identity off of them with their teams. And for two teams in Jacksonville and the Chargers, really paid off yesterday and or excuse me on Sunday. And so I just wanted to kind of get your opinions on that kind of stuff. Is that a direction you think we'll see the league going even more, or do you think it's kind of a thing where it's a matter of preference for certain coaches and organizations?
Yeah, so I think that it's different within the situation. I think that with the Jags game, I think that Doug Peterson kind of thought and saw that Trevor Lawrence was having like the basically the best drive of his career there. He
Yeah.
had some of the best throws that he's made. He's on fire. They're not a winning team. They were 3-7 at the time. It's kind of like if we go to overtime with this Baltimore Raven team, do we have confidence in ourselves to pull out the dub? And I didn't think they did. It's either we win now or we lose, and that's fine with them because it's like what's the worst that's gonna okay, we go to 3-8. They were expected to win anyway. It's kind of like the Giants Titans game in week 1. Dable kind of said like what do we have to lose? We're not expected to win. If we go to overtime, Derrick Henry's probably just going to do his thing and run all over us. And so he went for two and it worked out. I think that Doug Peterson kind of felt the same thing. He was absolutely balling out on that drive, and it's like I'm gonna give my quarterback that I trust and need to have confidence in moving forward the ball here, instead of just kicking the one and then anything. You go 3-and-out, and then Tucker, all he's got to do is kick a field goal, and he can hit from anywhere basically except 67.
Mhm.
But I think that I don't know if it's exactly going to be something that's coaches are going to use moving forward, but I think it's definitely situational football, and I think
Mhm.
that if you have confidence in your quarterback who's had a great drive, you're definitely going to go with him, especially if you're the underdog.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's exactly where I was hoping you would take it. Stuff like it's a lot of it's kind of vibes, right? You might need to have that sort of predisposition to it, um, in the sense that you're open to going for two in situations like that. You're not as dogmatic in the way you think about the game. Um, but from there, yeah, it is kind of okay. This is the kind of team we're going up against. Do we want to leave this up to a coin flip? Do we want to trust the defense if it comes down to a coin flip, or do we want to trust our young quarterback who is just spitting flames
Yeah.
in the second half? He had a couple tough plays early on, but those last few drives were really what Jags fans have been wanting to see out of Trevor. He's been so good between the 20s, but you finally saw him execute in the red area and execute late in the fourth. Um, so then that was great to see as well. But you saw another team benefit from the similar strategy. So let's talk a little bit of uh, Chargers real quick as they kind of put the nail in the coffin with Arizona as well. Um, taking the win 25-24, going for
Mm.
two on the go-ahead score. So um, similar kind of thing, but I feel like Staley's always kind of leaning towards whatever Herbert's got. I mean you see him throwing on third and fourth and short all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Similar thing applies, I feel like. Um, but this one in particular, when you've got a guy where, like Herbert, where you feel almost infinitely confident in him and consistently confident in him, do you think that that sort of influences your overall strategy kind of in general, maybe regardless of opposition and regardless of situation a little bit more when you've got a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean, so it seems interesting now because on the other side, this is kind of an opposite situation because they're not the underdogs, but they are on the road. As a 5-5 football team who they think that they're better than that record, says to be. I think that Staley kind of thought, all right, here we're down a point, and if we take this to overtime, you don't really know what's going to happen. Kyler wasn't having the worst of games, and if they,
Hmm.
Arizona's been known to have that flurry of like unbelievable in the, in the late stages of games,
Yeah.
and I think that in that sense, he was thinking, I'm going to trust my young gun here, who's, he was only what he had like 12 incompletions. He threw 3 touchdowns, no picks. He had a great game again. Um, and I think that that's a situation where you just trust your quarterback to make a play.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't make the play, you kind of live with it. You kind of live and die with Justin Herbert in that moment. And they needed this win in the worst way to go under 500. Kind of seals the deal there. Puts the nail in the coffin in their season, in my opinion, especially with such a heavy AFC. So it was a gutsy call, but thank God for them that it worked out because if it didn't, he'd be getting a lot of heat. He would have gotten a lot of heat Monday morning.
And they love to give Staley or Harbaugh or whoever the pariah of the week is when it comes to calls like that. They love
Yep.
to give him crap in the media, but I think having the guts to go that way is commendable for sure. And sort of to your point, when the Chargers feel like they are the better football team, I think that mindset is like, all right, let's go take it now on this drive because we know we can do it. If that doesn't happen, maybe we have to go back to the drawing board. Maybe our bread and butter isn't what we thought it was. But it can be a real equalizer as well, like the Giants game early on in the season when you feel like you're the worst team maybe of the two, and you feel like it's like, oh wow, we got to the end of this game with a chance to tie it against a really good football team with low expectations on our football team. Let's just see if we can win this thing. And it's a very different kind of call, but it came to the same outcome early on for them. And you see it work across the league at times. These, maybe it's 4th and 2, maybe it's going for too late. But I think it's something you'll start to see a little bit more of, maybe, but it also is probably going to table off here pretty soon. It's not like you're going to get to the extreme of it and punt half or less the time, but you,
Yeah.
you might see it kind of climb a little bit more and then table off as people start to get used to it, and it's less of kind of a game plan changer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in practice, these coaches are definitely gonna, key and make it a point of emphasis to like get these two point, to convert from the 2 yard line.
Mhm.
Whether it's that type of nice play that the Jags drew up for Zay Jones, whether it's that nice play that the Giants had for Barkley to get in the end zone in week one.
Mhm.
I think that getting in, I think that it's a lost art to get into the end zone from the 2 yard line, 3 yard line, because I've seen so many times in that Bills Vikings game when the Vikings were on
Yeah.
like the 2 yard line, and all of a sudden in
Oh
overtime,
man.
and all of a sudden they're back to the 8. It's like it seems so simple to get into the end zone, but it's really not, and
Mhm.
it's really become like a lost art. And I think that coaches definitely need to make that a point of emphasis going forward as they see more and more of the other their fellow coaches get
Mhm.
get wins by just, I got one play here to win this football game. We've practiced this play in practice all week. I'm gonna roll out Trevor Lawrence. Zay Jones is gonna be open. We're gonna win this game against the Ravens. And if you have confidence in that, then you can make that happen. So I definitely think that they're gonna, make that a key
Mhm.
moving forward. And I think that these 2 point conversions for the win. I don't know if that. I know there's been three now. I don't know if there's been more, but I think that coaches are gonna see that, and the fact that it's happening more and more than ever before, really, I think that I think that's gonna kind of open the eyes of other coaches around the league and make them, key in on it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that short area, you're right. It's if it's not a Patrick Mahomes shovel pass, it seems like
Right.
it's a tough place to execute. Um, but yeah, no, I think it's definitely a benefit to certain teams. There might be some teams who feel good going with a tie instead of taking a chance on losing. But um, I think when you've got a guy like Lawrence when he's hot, a guy like Herbert, you draft those guys to feel confident making those kind of calls.
Mhm.
So those are two really fun games right off the bat. The next one I wanted to touch on um, is, and I just want to pull up our theme for the segment. And that's the Denver Broncos offense. 23-10 was the final in Carolina.
Mm.
And that was the cherry on top of a really funny statistic. If the season were to end today, Denver would have the lowest scoring offense by points per game since the 2000 Browns. The
Okay, yeah.
2000 Browns,
2000
lower
Browns.
than the 0-16 Browns, lower than the 0-16 Lions.
Wow.
And it's just, and I actually, so here were the quarterbacks for that team. So Russell Wilson, consider his contract, consider his reputation, consider his pedigree. Quarterback for the 2000 Browns was Tim Couch. He only started 7 games. Starting 8 games was Doug Peterson.
Wow.
Actually, yeah. Um, they also got a start out of Spurgeon Wynn that season.
Yeah.
And these guys are throwing to a pre-Tom Brady David Patton. Um, they're throwing to Dennis Northcutt. Um, yeah, man, and it is just such like it's such a funny comparison because you see, I mean, even if you just think about like preseason hype kind of stuff, you see the weapons for Denver on the offensive side. Great young back, couple good young receivers,
Mhm.
championship caliber quarterback in theory, and it just has not worked out. And the defense is playoff caliber for sure. Um, so what is your temperature on this situation with Russ over there? Because obviously, I mean, the dead cap hit is insurmountable at this juncture. If they were to cut ties, maybe at the end of the season, something
Yeah.
like that, in worst case scenario. Um, but the way you're looking at it, how long do you think, or how many scapegoats do you think come before it really is Russ? Because I think Hackett goes. Um, But outside of that, man, it's tough to pinpoint anything other than the man in charge of the offense. And I mean those statistics are just gaudy, and there's uproar in the fan base. The national just kind of football fandom is sick of it. But bring us back down to earth a little bit. What do you think's really going on in that building, and how long do you think that experiment lasts on this contract?
It's bad, man. It's bad. It's not. It's not something that I don't think anybody that follows the football landscape, closely thought was going to happen before the season started. I think that everybody thought the AFC West would be the best division in football. Um, and as you said it, how many scapegoats are there going to be? Well, obviously you blame the head coach. Okay, blame the head coach. Fire the head coach. Blame the defense. No, we can't blame the defense. The defense plays well. The defense, if they had a good offense, would be known as one of the top tier, defenses in the league. So you can't do that. Blame the
Mhm.
receivers. No, you can't do that because Cortland Sutton's been playing well and he's been getting open. You can't blame Jerry Jeudy. He's out for the season. You know, the O line really hasn't even been that bad. The problem in Denver is that he's losing the locker room, and there's people that just don't believe in him on his team. I would feel different about this whole situation if they all still bought in with him and
Mhm.
Broncos country, let's ride. You know, they're all wearing the t-shirts, throughout the season, whether or not they're 3-8 or 8-3. But that's just not the case. And he's kind of he brought in this like cute thing in the beginning of the season where he was so excited because he thought that this team was going to be so good. And early on, it just didn't like the 10-9 games. It was like that doesn't happen with Russell Wilson. And it was like, why is this weird, right? Why is this weird? They're on prime time again, 16-13. They're on prime time again. That Colts game where there was no touchdowns. I was so um I think that I think that the it's at a point where Russell needs to somehow either have a great game or he needs to have a meeting with the entire offense and or like for that matter the entire team because he's probably pissing off a lot of the defensive players on that team
Yeah.
by not performing week in and week out. These defensive players are like Bradley Chubb was shipped out because of you because he'd still be here if we were good. Other guys are getting dealt. People are going down. People are not happy in this building. And Denver, who had been so bad for so many years, were finally they were excited about their team. And yeah, I mean, it was better with Drew Lock. I mean, this is unbelievable. I've never seen anything
Mhm.
like it with a superstar quarterback who's won a Super Bowl and should have won two Super Bowls to come
Mhm.
into a good situation and just completely flop.
Yep. And last time, I mean, you're probably thinking 2015, last time the Broncos were really, really good, and you gotta remember that defense drug an absolutely noodle-armed Peyton Manning
Yeah,
to a Super Bowl. Um, so these fans know what a good defense can do for a quarterback who at least can operate the offense, can control the locker room, and can be a leader out there, gloves or otherwise, you know? Um,
yeah,
and Russ just isn't really either this year. Um, you see every once in a while you see a flash, you see a Russell Wilson deep ball that's just on the money, and it's just got that. He just has like a specific arc to it. Like maybe it's the low release point or trajectory of that ball, but his deep
yeah.
ball looks so nice when he's on. And you've seen like a couple this year, but those are really the only flashes. You're not seeing any of the shake and bake in the pocket. You're not seeing any of the creativity.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think Hackett. I'll pull this comment back up. I think Hackett does have to go. I can't see him lasting past this season. Unless they'd have to win out, and things would have to change drastically. I think Hackett has to go. You're not on the hook financially with him to that degree. Um, but QB whisperer to save Russ, is that Frank Reich?
Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning? Yeah,
I,
that's a good question.
I, I mean, the thing is about it is that as I said, like, are they gonna win out and then like okay, Russell Wilson also you said he's made a few of those nice throws this season. Usually he makes a few of those throws one game, right? In a
Yep.
game, he's thrown for 330 and four touchdowns, maybe a bad pick, but he's made big throws and Metcalf's got big yards and it's just not the Russell Wilson. I mean, if we're gonna see flashes of greatness, that's the signs of a washed player. It's the same thing with Derrick Rose. It's like, oh, I saw that back in 2011. Yeah, I saw that back in 2011 all the time. Now we're seeing it, once a game, maybe like once a week. And he's washed up now, and it's just the same thing. It's like, okay, if we're seeing flashes of what you once were, and it's not consistent, it's just signs that you're not really clicking anymore And as you said, no shake and bake, no shake and bake in the pocket, no getting out and trying to scramble for more yards. Kind of a dead duck there in the pocket. He makes some nice throws, but they're not putting up points. They haven't put up points all season.
Yeah,
It's been bad.
it's abhorrent. It's a really tough look on that offense, and especially when the defense is so solid.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for disaster in that locker room, especially. Maybe they should give him the Zach Wilson question, and we can just bring this thing to a head.
Maybe.
Give him a yes or
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. He would say yes though because he's been
yeah,
through
he would.
this.
He
He would
would. He
say
knows
yes.
how to play the game.
Yeah.
Next one I wanted to touch on here is first I wanted to get to Tampa Bay loss
Yeah.
in overtime at Cleveland that was definitely a step back from what you and I have been talking about the past few weeks with Brady and that offense late in games. It was just a tough overtime. The fact that it got to overtime was surprising to begin with, but once they got there, the Bucks had 2 drives, 2 shots, 13 plays, 34 yards, 2 punts,
Unbelievable.
and they ended up just putting the ball back in Jacoby Brissett's hands. Way too much time for Jacoby Brissett. No, I mean they'd already forced a punt on the Browns as well, but um, I don't know how much of that game you caught towards the end, but I just wanted to get your thoughts or your renewed thoughts, I suppose, on that Tampa Bay offense and the ceiling on that team right now. They're still in first place in the AFC South, which we'll get to shortly as well. Which is always I think 5-6, but um, so they still control their own destiny there. But how do you feel in the long run about this team going up against the other NFC heavyweights in the playoffs, and how do you feel about this team's ceiling?
Yeah, so obviously losing this game to Cleveland's not, that was really unexpected. Obviously, I think I said last week I don't think I'd ever seen Tom Brady play a game in Cleveland, which I don't know.
Okay.
Like it just seemed like it seemed like he was out of place there. I don't know, but yeah, he really didn't play that well. Godwin had a good game. Mike Evans, where are you? Julio, where are you? Like it hasn't worked out in the way that the Bucks had anticipated with when they had Antonio Brown. He kind of clicked with them because they already had that chemistry with Brady. It's just
Hmm.
not working out that way with Julio. Um, and if Godwin's going to be the only target that you can really get, ample yards out of, it's just not. That's Brady's a guy that spreads the ball around, and at least 3 to 4 guys have 50 to 60 yards minimum, and that's not happening this year. And I think that that's really taken a toll on his confidence, just like having like a kind of a stagnant offense, no real run game. Fournette's out. It's been tough. It's been like tough sledding all season. The offense is like tried to throw it too much, and then the run game doesn't really get going, and then they don't take enough time off the clock. The defense can they can't do what they want to do. I think now we're hearing the rumblings that Brady might go back to New England, which that's crazy to me. I mean, I'm not really down for that, but I think that this team is kind of it hit its peak when it won its Super Bowl, and I think that that was the best game that they will ever play in this Brady Bucks era. That awesome Super Bowl win against Kansas City, a blowout. I think that's
Hmm.
their ceiling, and I think that they hit it. Um, Obviously you don't want to see Tom Brady on the road in the playoffs, but I think that this season, just the way that they've been playing, if it's a Dallas, if it's a, you know, I mean, Dallas is really the only team that I could see, being elite but not winning their division. So they'd have to go on the road. I think that Dallas would take care of them on the road. I really do.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. It's a tough look, and but I will say this: it's something you can never really count all the way out. Is
Yeah,
Tom Brady turning it on when he absolutely has to? To your point with Todd Bowles in charge of the entire staff, I don't think we're getting a Todd Bowles masterclass like 31-9 in
yeah,
the Super Bowl, but and that defense hasn't quite been that this year. They started off really strong, but a little inconsistent. They still have the horses. It's just, is it going to really all come together at the right time? On the offensive side, Fournette's been, he's been a huge disappointment. Rashad White took the job from him at a certain point. And Julio, to your point as well, maybe not quite as complimentary of a skill set as Antonio Brown when that was really clicking. Obviously, no Gronkowski. It's not the same team. They kept so many guys, but it really isn't quite the same team. No BA coaching,
Yeah,
so
that had to make a huge difference.
yeah, I don't know if it's the perfect recipe anymore. The NFC is really goofy this year though too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I'd be shocked. I don't think I'd be shocked to see them win it. I think the Bucks should get absolutely hogwashed by any AFC team that makes it out. Bengals, Bills, Chiefs, maybe
Yeah,
others.
I mean they're gonna get hogwashed by any NFC team that they play in the playoffs. I
But
just
maybe I don't know. Like it's just like the teams in the NFC are just a little like even my Vikings, all of them just kind of feel like paper tigers right now. It just doesn't feel like there's an actual. I mean,
so
the Eagles are so
you could
strong in the
see the
trenches
Bucks
in the
going on a
playoffs.
little bit of a run.
Yeah, like if you really squint, if you squint hard enough that it's like 2019, I mean, it's still the best roster in football. Like it's so good, and there's so much pride on that team, but I don't know if it all comes together at the same time. I think you've
Yeah, I mean,
seen.
I'm gonna have to see more out of them towards the end of the year. I don't think that if they come off a 16-10 win, that they're just gonna all of a sudden go on a run in the playoffs. But maybe if they start putting up some points, maybe I see something. Obviously, the win against the Seahawks was good. The win against the Rams was not impressive,
No.
right? So, like, I mean, I think that um, though, yeah, I'd like to see a 31-10 kind of like shellacking, and in that case, then I would have a little bit more confidence. We just haven't seen that all year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with
Yeah,
you
so
there. It's tough to count them out, but it's might be tougher to count them in right now.
yeah.
And that is a good transition into our next segment, which will be our playoff predictions. And the way I want to frame this is with a little graphic here that just shows the current. There we go. Shows the current standings. And it also shows who's on the outside looking in. And I think the easiest way, or maybe the most interesting way to talk about this, is who do you see with 6 games remaining? Who do you see maybe falling out of this playoff picture and giving way to some of these teams chomping at the bit? Um, just for a little bit of context, Chargers and Patriots are both 6-5 behind the 7-4 Jets. Or excuse me, the 6-5 Jets, and the Seahawks are 6-5 as well, sitting behind the 6-5 Commanders.
Right.
Cowboys, Giants, Commanders, NFC East, all represented in the NFC. Let's start there. Do you think that whole division makes the playoffs?
Um, I do not. I do think that ultimately, um, oh well, wow, okay, that's a tough one now. I think that the
Kind
Commanders
of is.
finish above. I think that the Commanders finish above the Giants. However, with how poor the rest of the NFC really is outside of Seattle, maybe, but they're kind of falling apart now too. It's really hard to see. It's really hard to see anybody but those four teams, San Francisco and Minnesota, making it. The
Hmm.
thing about that is, so that I think that I guess it'll be Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Commanders, Niners, Seahawks, Vikings. Oh wait, no, but that doesn't make any sense. Never mind. So the Bucks, right? So the Bucks, yeah, I think the Giants slip out, and I think the Seahawks are in, and I think that
Okay.
so three teams from the East, not the Giants, Niners and Seahawks, Vikings, Bucks. what I got.
Gotcha. And I think I misspoke when I said the Washington record. So they actually haven't had a bye. They're 7-5.
Mhm.
So they got a half game on
Yeah.
Seattle right now, who's 6-5.
Right.
Um, Atlanta's 5-7. They're probably out of that conversation right now. Giants 7-4. Cowboys are comfortable 8-3. I don't see them anywhere but the 5 seed. I don't think they catch
Yeah. Well,
Philly.
the thing about the South is that whoever wins the division between Tampa and Atlanta is making the playoffs. Whoever's out is out. There's no coup de grace there. That's
Yep.
it. There's no
And whoever's in's
um
playing Dallas.
yeah, or Philly.
Hmm.
So they're fighting for everything. It's not like you can make the wild card if you don't, win the division. So, I mean, it's going to be one of those like Washington winning the division in 2020 with a losing record. And when they win the division and the NFL posts on Instagram about them winning the division, everybody's going to make fun of them, of course. But it's
Hmm.
not, but I just, honestly, the Giants kind of have a tough, go at it in the late stages. They had a really easy go at it in the early stages. And we kind of saw their true colors in Dallas on Thanksgiving, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of going up against one of the big boys in a big time game. So yeah, I mean I could see that as well. Uh, it's tough. I could see Giants or Commanders, but the way the Commanders have been playing just as of late, I think they could ride that into a playoff spot and maybe jump them at 6 there. And
Yeah,
Pete Carroll coaching down the stretch, tough to argue with. Ron Rivera's been coaching very, very well as well. Um, and I think you'll finally kind of see the talent gap start to be too much to overcome for the Giants. Um, they do have some studs, but it's just not, they don't really have the playmakers. They don't really have the quarterback to compete. So when it comes to jockeying for playoff position late, I think the Giants are my odd man out there as well. Um, I really want the Falcons to win the division
yeah,
just because it'd be like, I don't know, just a super unceremonious Tom Brady exit, and
yeah. Especially
I
because
don't
I
know.
had Atlanta as one of the top, one of the bottom five teams of the league before the season started. So it'd be pretty crazy.
Exactly. Exactly.
I was looking at the Giants' remaining schedule: Commanders, Eagles, Commanders, Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, Colts, Eagles. They
Yeah,
could lose out. They could lose out.
they
They
could
could go
lose out,
7-10. They
and
could
if
go
if
seven
two
and
of them are
ten.
Commanders, exactly, that they're those are losses against the team that you're vying for position for or
Why
with.
would they not lose out right there? I mean, they might beat the Colts at home. Maybe. I really don't even think that they could beat them. Um, I'm really low on the Giants all of a sudden after seeing the last two games. Even the last three. I mean, the Texans game wasn't incredibly impressive to beat them by 8 points. Um, so I don't think that they beat the Commanders on how hot of a streak they're on.
Hmm.
Eagles, they have no chance. In Minnesota, it's a joke, and then in Philly, they could go 7-10. I'm serious. This is crazy to me.
Man, that'd be fun.
Right.
Um, okay, well,
So
hope
seven
we
and
got some
four, seven
spam
and ten,
coming.
man.
Um,
Very
yeah,
possible.
I think that's kind of how the NFC shakes out. There's not as much wiggle room there. It's not quite as competitive through and through. Um,
Right.
but I think there are going to be some really interesting matchups once we get there, and that's going to be the interesting part is who gets who round one, depending on how this shakes out. The AFC, kind of towards that in the hunt section,
Hmm.
is really interesting in my opinion. So I'll let you start this one as well, and we'll frame it the same way. Who do you see as most likely to fall out, if not more than one team, and who do you see kind of taking that place? Chargers and Patriots again, both 6-5. Colts 4-7-1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So in the AFC, obviously a lot of horses here. A lot of wagon teams: Dolphins, Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, and Titans. Those are they're going to be in. So that's
Mhm.
2, 3, 4, 5. So I need two more. Obviously, I'm going to take Baltimore as one of them, and it comes down to the Jets, Patriots, or Chargers. And the thing about that is that I don't trust the Jets at all, and I think they have a kind of tough schedule to end the season here. And I know Mike White is not that guy. I've seen it happen. I've seen him throw 4 picks in a game. It's not going to happen for him. I'm sorry. And then it comes down to the Chargers and the Patriots, and honestly, I just trust BB. I trust the greatest coach of all time to get it done over a team that hasn't made the playoffs since Phillip Rivers did in 2018. And I just even though I got the Pats losing this week, they're going to go on a little bit of a run. They're going to get to 9 or 10 wins. The Chargers are going to struggle winning games because of all their injuries, and the Jets are going to kind of implode, in my opinion, as the season kind of winds down. So I got Dolphins, Bills, Patriots, Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals. Bengals probably win it, and then Titans.
Gotcha. You think they're both 7-4 right now. Ravens just have the
Right.
tiebreaker, so you're thinking Bengals pull out the AFC North.
I do.
Gotcha. And yeah, it's got to be the Jets as most likely. Tough segment for New York, but
Yeah.
I actually like, I want to go with the Chargers here as well, just because I feel like they're a team that can kind of get hot.
They are.
Just depending on how the Patriots do. The Patriots defense has just been so legit. They've been much healthier, pretty strong on the offensive line, and I don't want to be too redundant with you, but the Jets I don't think make it either. They're at Vikings, at Bills. They've got Lions and Jacksonville at home, who recently have been very frisky.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
end at Seattle and at Miami.
No.
New York could
That's
lose out.
They could lose out. I don't like if there's any Jets fans
East
watching. I don't want to
Rutherford
just be
might
like
stay
hating on you.
winless.
I don't want
Yeah.
to just be hating on you, Giants and Jets fans. But the thing is, I mean, the Lions at home, I don't see that as an easy win. And the Jaguars at home, they might get that one. But if they get that one and none of the others, they go 8-9, and that doesn't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
So
it seems like a real possibility. So yeah, 8-9 seems so possible there. It could be a winless December in East Rutherford.
and the New York sports media will go crazy.
Yeah,
They're going to be
exactly.
shocked. They're going to be shocked.
Right. Speaking of the Chargers, and I honestly I think I'll go Patriots. Just again, I think the Patriots snagged the 7 seed, probably 9-8, something like that. Jets and Chargers. If the Jets finish with the same record as the Patriots as well, Pats have the tiebreaker, beating them twice this year. So
Right.
I'm gonna go Patriots. To Josh's
Winning.
question here,
Yeah.
I think mostly. I'm not a huge fan of Joe Lombardi's play calling, but he's kind of had a hand tied behind his back most of the season when you're drawing up route concepts for when it's not Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, and it's um, I almost said Jalen Guyton, DeAndre Carter, and
Right.
somebody else with a J that I can't think of, and Gerald Everett, and Austin Eckler's been pretty lukewarm for the most part. So when you're having a hard, I mean, and they'll stick to these really just they kind of limit Justin Herbert sometimes with the short game they call. You'll see a lot of play calls for the Chargers where there's not a single route going deeper than 7-8 yards. They'll run these. It's a Shanahan concept, but they'll run these out of spread. They'll run basically 5 curls, and some of them will be angled, but it's just like a giant stick concept. And watch a Chargers game, you'll see like 18 of them
Yeah.
on all downs, and I think play calling's played a part for sure.
And I think you were thinking of Josh Palmer, right?
Josh Palmer, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
But I think play calling's a part. Injuries though are a good a good 60-70% of it. They've just been
Yep.
ravaged. It's been a really, really tough. And at key positions and at, I mean, left tackle, wide receiver 1 and 2. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that. Edge at times, so at a certain point it is pretty insurmountable, and when you're playing guys that deep on your roster, it's tough to overcome.
Yep.
But yeah, I think they could do better to open Herbert up throughout the game. When he gets to his 4-minute offense, it's whole shot. It's post over in front of the safeties. Like he just starts slinging it when he really needs to. But I think they could open that up throughout the game a little bit more, and that could help them a bit. But I think they're going to that quick game because they've got some injuries on the offensive line, and it might just be kind of a chicken egg thing with the play calling and the injuries. So, but yeah, that's how I think it shakes out. We've kind of both got Jets and Giants falling out, and I think we're both on Patriots and Seahawks climbing in. On record, I'll say I'm hopeful that the Chargers make some noise, but I really don't see the top 6 teams in the AFC going anywhere. They might shuffle a little bit. And same for the top 6 teams in the NFC, although again, Buccaneers, Falcons, who knows? It's going to be someone terrible at the 4 seed.
Do they play each other again?
The Bucks Falcons, I feel like they do because I know Falcons played Panthers.
They play week 18.
Is it 18? Oh, dude, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, no, hopefully it comes right down to that.
Yeah, that'd be
I was
awesome.
thinking about that like as I was talking. I was like, I know they played once.
In
Um,
Atlanta.
and
The
Atlanta
Bucks
almost
beat the
had him.
Falcons. Yeah,
Atlanta almost had him. It was
21-15.
that BS roughing the passer on Grady Jarrett.
That's right. I wrote an article about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they should have
Yeah.
won.
So that week 18 games in Atlanta. In Atlanta, if it came down to that, I don't know. I might pull the upset. I might go with Atlanta in that one.
Yeah, man. I'd be pulling for it for sure.
No doubt.
Um, all right, last thing we are going to get to, it is our weekly pick'em segment. We are going to run through this relatively quickly, but we've got some really, really fun games on the docket between some teams with very good records. So I'll list the records as I go through these as well, but we'll just have you go first as I run through this week's slate of games. So first one is the Thursday nighter. You know about this one. It's Buffalo at New England. 8-3 Buffalo at the 6-5 Patriots. Divisional game. We just talked about how the Patriots are going to get hot late. Are you picking them against your Bills?
Yeah, I'm not gonna pick them against my Bills, but I'll pick them later in the year.
Okay.
I got the Bills just because we've really started to play well against Belichick in the last few times that we've seen him, other than of course the 3-pass Mac Jones game, but that was a lot of wind happening in that one. So I think this one in Foxborough, I don't think weather's going to be too much of an issue. Josh usually plays better when it's nighttime, so I got the Bills.
I'm gonna go Patriots at home. I think they're a team that is gonna bounce back from a loss pretty well, and it's a divisional game. I think it's just gonna be. I think it could get a little bit not ugly, but not as ugly as the Patriots Vikings game last week, or probably even the Bills Vikings game from the week before. But I think it's gonna be a game where Belichick's able to slow down that offense at least enough to be close. And then it's kind of anybody's ball game. So if he can just bait Josh Allen into like 2 mistakes, they might pull one out. So I'm gonna go with the upset there, the home upset.
You also got to think the game's in New England, and they got to be a little pissed off about losing by 30 in the playoffs in the last time they saw
Yeah,
them,
man.
right?
Yeah.
Because they got embarrassed. They were embarrassed, and
Yes.
no, Belichick doesn't do embarrass very well. So he's gonna have this team ready. He's gonna say, "Remember what they did to you guys last time we saw them, right?" And they're gonna be ready. It's not gonna be an easy game by any means. I think it was Bills -5 or 4. I'm taking the Patriots to cover. It's gonna be a field goal game.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Yep.
gonna be a good one. Anyway, that's a good Thursday nighter. We haven't had many that are that
Yeah.
intriguing.
Chargers Chiefs early in the year was good. And this is good. So yeah.
Exactly. Yep. We've got Atlanta at home hosting the 4-7 Pittsburgh Steelers. Atlanta still kind of in the hunt at 5-7. A loss, is going to start to feel tough to overcome for them if they want to make some noise. So they kind of need one here. Do you think they get it at home against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I do. I think that Pittsburgh doesn't play particularly well on the road, even though they did pull out the win in Indianapolis last Monday night, which was really surprising to me. Um, I got Atlanta coming off a really tough loss in Washington, which they should have been able to pull that out in the late stages of that game. Bad interception thrown by Mariota. I think that they kind of they salvaged that loss, and they need this in the worst way.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to go Atlanta as well. I think it's really close. I liked what I saw from Kenny Pickett last week. The Pickett to Pickens connections there for sure. Um, I just don't think it'll be quite enough. And the type of defense Pittsburgh plays, I think, is Atlanta's going to want to establish the run, and they're going to run very consistently. And I think they're going to be able to do that. And I think they're going to be able to avoid that pass rush from Highsmith and Watt, um, and kind of keep the game on their terms a little bit. So I'm going to go Atlanta as well. Um, Next, we've got Baltimore, 7-4, hosting the Denver Broncos. Now, the Ravens kind of like to lose to bad teams. Do you think they do?
Oh God, I mean, we no, I mean, we talked about Denver. I think that if you don't have trust in the locker room, you don't have trust in yourself. And I think that it's kind of, he would never show it himself, but he's got to have some kind of self-doubt in his mind, when he's going through, practice every week. I don't know if they're having good practices over there in Denver. I really don't. I don't know if they
I
are.
heard he was unlimited
And
in practice.
yeah, I didn't hear that. I think that we're going with Baltimore riding this. They need this win in the worst way because Cincinnati is on their heels.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They can't afford to give the game up. I got to go Ravens as well. This is the time of year where they really start taking care of business. So hopefully, for a prediction sake, they stay on top of things. And I also kind of like to rag on the Broncos as long as they're as bad as they are because uh, Justin Simmons and Patrick Surtain are like two of my 10 favorite players that aren't
Yeah,
Vikings. And
yeah.
I'm really mad we don't get to see those guys playing high level football this season. So, um,
I got some advice for the Ravens. Don't go up 10 points. So that's my advice.
that's
Maybe be
good.
up 4-7 and then go up in the late stages. Don't go up 10 in the first half. Just
Yeah, that has not been a good recipe. Next, we've got may, maybe interesting for some. We've got a noon game. It's Chicago 3-9 hosting the 4-8 Packers. Now we might see Jordan Love. We might not see Justin Fields. I think it's still a little up in the air. Um, so while we're on the topic, just real quick, what do you think of Jordan Love last week? Do you think we see him this week? And what are your expectations if we do?
I mean, don't you love this part of the NFL season? We see all these backup quarterbacks because some of the starters aren't that guy. They've lost
Bryson
confidence, and
Hopkins, dude, bless his
and there's
heart.
so many. Oh yes, Bryce Hop. Oh my gosh. So I think that Love to Watson connection, that's the future of the Green Bay Packers. Whether they want to see, whether fans of the team want to see that or not. I think they kind of saw that long touchdown pass that he had to Christian Watson. That gave me a lot of confidence in them moving forward. Even though they lost, I think that Packer fans, it's hard to, after being so elite for so many years, having the reigning back-to-back, super MVP of the league, take this massive step back. You have to understand that it happens, and if you're going to move forward, you got to take a step back, and that's what they did. So Jordan Love, I think he'll play this week. I think they give Rodgers a break. I don't even know if he'd want to play this week anyway, just because of his body and him aging. and them not really being in the hunt anymore. I don't really know if he'd even want to be on the field this week. So I think it'll be Love, and I don't know if it's going to be Peterman. I don't know if it's going to be Simeon. I don't know if it's going to be Fields. So should be an interesting quarterback matchup, but I do have the Packers pulling it out.
Yeah, and Jordan Love and Christian Watson feel like kind of a match made in heaven just from a skill set perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, Jordan Love just has an absolute cannon. Christian Watson has absolute wheels, and it could be kind of a one-dimensional attack until his route running gets a little more refined and Jordan Love kind of works the intermediate a little bit more efficiently. Um, but the high end potential of that duo, I think,
Yep.
is pretty promising as well for that fan base. So
Yeah.
um, I am going to go Packers as well. Um, I think at this point that I think they get a few pride wins in. I don't think they lose to the Bears, but the Bears are going to want to beat the Packers while they smell blood. Um,
Yeah.
so I could see it going either way, but I'm going to go Pack here. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be gross, but don't watch it um,
Unless you're a Packer
unless
fan, you want to
you're
see
super
Jordan Love.
invested in either team. Yeah, there are a lot
Yeah.
of other good games going on at the same time. Maybe catch it on Red Zone. Next, we got this. Actually, should be a really fun game. Detroit hosting Jacksonville. They're both 4-7, both kind of starting to figure it out. So it should be a fun one. Who you got here?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick against Detroit at home after what I just saw on Thanksgiving. I mean, they they had this game going into overtime if they just didn't make a horrendous decision. First of all, watching this game live as a Bills fan, I was so glad to see Dan Campbell not take a timeout as the time's ticking down. I'm like confused. Same thing with Jeff Saturday and the Colts. Why are they
Yeah.
not taking a timeout? Like I would have done that. I don't
Is no one
understand, but
screaming in their headset?
yeah, I thought that maybe that like they knew football a little bit more than I did, but and then I say in my mind take a timeout, and then the reason that they lost the next morning is because they didn't, and I'm like, well, okay, because I'm always like thinking I'm like they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, don't worry about them.
Um, they know what they're doing. So but like the Jags beating the Ravens, it was such a gritty W. But I kind of just saw it on the face of Doug Peterson as that field goal from Tucker missed. He had the fucking smile on his face, like I can't believe we just won this football game.
Yeah.
um, so I kind of think that they're gonna go into Detroit, and what a head coach matchup, man. I mean, this is great. I love these two guys. Um, and a good young football team in Jacksonville facing a team that's kind of hot in Detroit. They lost to the Bills. They look good doing it, you know. Um, so I'm gonna take Detroit to ride this little momentum swing that they've had. They had three straight wins, tough loss on Thanksgiving at the buzzer. I think they get back on the horse and they beat Jacksonville, but at least 4 points.
I'm gonna go Jacksonville, but I think it's gonna be a lot of points, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be pretty fun to watch. Um, I do like, and the way these teams have operated so far this season, you've got to think it's gonna be close and down to the wire, So
Yeah.
this is one that I'm definitely gonna keep my eye on. It's yeah, two relatively exciting young teams who nothing necessarily on the line for him this season. But you're seeing these rosters kind of grow and develop, and um, Trevor Lawrence, how he follows up that performance. Some of the young guys on Detroit and the way they're coached. So it should be a fun one to watch. This one won't. This is well, actually, all right. This has some storylines to it, but it's Cleveland at Houston. The 4-7 Browns at 1-9-1 Houston Texans.
Yeah, what an interesting game because all season I've said that when Deshaun finally comes back, he's not going to look very good. He didn't look very good in preseason, and he looked very out of it, very not accustomed to the playbook. He was just so rusty. But they're playing the 1-9-1 Houston Texans, and it's like they're not even like these guys are. I just read a thing where it said that the Houston Texans are like, these are just people that are pretending to be professional football players. And I was like, wow. Um, I'm gonna take Cleveland, but not because of Deshaun Watson putting on an all-time performance. I got them just because they're the overall better football team, and they're kind of still in the hunt. That was a big win I thought against Tampa Bay, and that kind of kept them, not completely out of contention. So they're gonna need these wins. Take this one, Cleveland. Take this one because they're gonna give it to you. Hopefully, we see some kind of flash from Deshaun, but it'll probably be more of him handing the ball off to the two big running backs, Chubb and Hunt, and him not. I doubt he throws it more than 20 times, honestly.
Yeah, I'm right there with it, and they're not mathematically eliminated. So yeah, there's some to
Yeah,
play for. They're getting their guy back under center, who they hope is their guy, but I don't think they put too much on his plate either, and I don't think they have to. I think it's 200 rushing yards
yeah,
between those two backs and whatever Deshaun does with his legs. So that should be
yeah.
a very clean win for them. Um, Next one's the 9-2 Vikings hosting the 7-4 Mike White led Jets.
Yeah. As we said earlier, I think this is kind of the start of the Jets' downfall. Um, they had a really nice win last week, and Mike White kind of did the same thing. I think it was last season when
Yep.
they beat Cincinnati at home, and everyone was like, holy shit, like Mike White is that guy. But he came back the next week and threw 4 interceptions against the Bills, and they lost 45-17. This is a game on the road. This is a game where it's going to be loud. The fans are rowdy. They're ready for a big win, and a big crowd is going to be out in Minnesota. Jets fans don't really travel that well. Mike White's probably going to be overmatched in this one.
Hmm.
Even though this could be kind of low scoring just because of how elite the Jets defense has been all season, I kind of see 19-10. I think Minnesota pulls it out.
Yeah, and Mike White can have some games though, man. There have been another fun nugget. There have been 4 games by Jets quarterbacks of 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks since Zach Wilson was drafted. None of them are Zach Wilson.
Wow.
2 of them are Mike White. One's Joe Flacco, and the other one's from Josh Johnson. So it doesn't matter. How much does it even matter? Because the rest of the team is pretty good. The
Yeah.
O line's pretty good. The weapons are pretty good. The defense is really good. And I don't like to say things like this, but the Vikings are a team against whom bad quarterbacks thrive. I don't know why. And it's, again, this is just from an all-time perspective. And I don't know if that's just because I watch every Vikings game and maybe not every other team game. But it's like I wouldn't even be surprised. Like Mac Jones at the game of his life is the NFL game of his life last week, and it's just something that if the quarterback's not going to make the mistakes, the defense won't necessarily force too many. The way that defense runs, they're kind of just waiting to let you make a mistake. They want to take away the deep stuff, and if they call real simple concepts for Mike White, he might kind of shred them, but I don't know if it'll matter. I'm going to go Vikings to win. Um, I'd love to see Justin Jefferson on Sauce Gardner reps.
Yep.
Sauce kind of plays sides. He's usually just the defensive left side. Jefferson's all over the place. I don't know if he's going to shadow, but I do want to see those reps. I'm really excited for that. So, but
Okay.
Vikings by several.
Okay.
Next one is a big one. Giants hosting the Washington Commanders. 7-4 Giants hosting the 7-5 Commanders, jockeying for playoff position. I think I know where you're going with this one, but who's your pick?
Well, yeah. I mean, as we said, this is kind of the start of the downfall for the Jets and Giants this week. And if they both win, I'm gonna come on here next week and I'm just gonna like look like such a clown. Um, but the Commanders, they've been riding this. They're kind of unorthodox. They do it boring, but they win games, and they've been doing this. 7-5. I took them. I took Atlanta last week because I thought they were kind of like due for a bad performance. It's not that they played poorly or they didn't play great, but they kind of just played like the Washington Commanders play. And I'm going to understand now that this is just how this is the product, you know? This is what you're going to see week in and week out from this team. If they're going to win the Super Bowl off of this, that's just not going to happen. But they're going to make the playoffs, and it's going to start right here by going 8-5 in the Meadowlands against a struggling football team, the Giants.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're making the playoffs for sure, and I think they're giving somebody hell in the first round. I mean,
Yep.
you saw the 2020 football team. It was still really
Mm-hmm.
give the Bucks some trouble, and that was
Yep.
Simeon. Um, so yeah, I like them to make the playoffs. I think this is where their run kind of starts. I think they rattle off. They probably end with 10 wins and a comfortable wild card spot. But this is where it starts. Ron Rivera's really just got him playing really well.
Yeah.
You got to talk about John Allen and Deron Payne in the middle. That's just a problem for teams, and they'll probably bottle up Saquon, and that interior pressure is tough for a guy like Daniel Jones to deal with.
Yeah.
Next one, Tennessee 7-4 at the 10-1 Eagles. Another noon game.
And this game could be Sunday night. I mean, this is a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all season long, I've kind of been like a little bit down on Philly just because I wasn't so impressed with some of their wins. I wasn't obviously I took Washington to beat them, so I wasn't obviously so surprised that Washington beat them. And the win against Indy wasn't exactly so great either, by just 1 point. They had a good win against the Packers. Obviously, they gave up too many points. They gave up a long touchdown from Jordan Love, which shouldn't be happening with a 10-1 football team. Um, Surprisingly, I'm actually taking them to win this game. It's a surprise in my own mind, just because I've been waiting for them to play a really playoff contending type team, and this is one. Um, Tennessee plays really good defense. They're going to give you hell in the run game, but so does Philly, and I think Philly does it better. Philly's at home. They're riding Jalen Hurts playing out of his mind. NFC Player of the Week again. Even though that I like the Titans a lot this year, I think that the Eagles do what the Titans do, and they do it better. So I think I got Philly here at home.
Yeah, I really like the way you put that. I was a little torn. I'm gonna go Philly. I think it's close, and
Yeah.
as soon as it comes out, I'm watching every single all 22 snap when the Titans are on defense, and I'm just gonna watch Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons try to handle that, or I suppose rather that offensive line try to handle Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry, because those are
Yeah.
two really, really great units.
Yep.
Um, and that's just going to be so interesting to see who gets the advantage there, and whether Philly's able to establish the run, and if they aren't, I think that opens the door for Tennessee if they're forced into passing, if they bottle up the run on early downs. But I like Philly to take this one. I think it's a 20-17. I think these both of these teams are just going to be draining the clock when they've got the
Mm-hmm.
ball. They're very methodical offenses. So low scoring game. Seattle at the Rams, 6-5 Seattle, 3-8 Rams. Trap game.
Trap game. Um, Maybe not, just because. I mean, listen, who do the Seahawks have after that? They got the Panthers. I mean, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
This game's in LA. It's somewhere the Seahawks have been before. It's a divisional game, which are always close, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
But Bryce Perkins, I mean, I just didn't see enough out of him to have a lot of confidence in him against a over 500 team, well coached. And I think that Sean McVay's kind of, obviously he'd never admitted, but he's kind of turned off this season, moved ahead to next year already, the off season. He's ready for that. He wants to have a great bounce back year. He's so excited about that. So this year is really not his priority. And Pete Carroll and the Seahawks this year is absolutely their priority, because they realized that they were undervalued going into the season, and they've completely shown everybody that they're a good football team coming off a really tough loss in overtime against Las Vegas, where they should have closed it out multiple times. They didn't, and I think they're
Mhm.
looking for a little bit of a bounce back. They need this win. Teams are on their heels in the NFC playoff race. I'm going to take Seattle to beat the Rams.
Yeah, and both of these teams have interesting implications with the first round picks they hold. So the more the Rams lose, the better Detroit's pick is.
Yeah.
Um, so they have no skin in the game to that kind of tanking mindset anyway. But I think you're right. I think Sean McVay is sort of checked out. From the Seattle perspective, yeah, let's go all in. Let's win as many games as we can because we don't need to worry about next year's draft because we've got Denver's first round pick.
Oh boy, yeah. There you go.
So that's kind of an interesting two sides of the coin there between these two teams. But I like Seattle to take care of business.
Nope.
Obviously, the Rams have some game wreckers, so you never know. But I like Seattle here as well. This one's really interesting because there's so much crossover between the personnel of these two teams, and this is San Francisco hosting Miami. I mean, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson. Um, we just saw. Um, who am I not thinking of?
Um.
Oh, this is gonna bug the crap.
Oh! You're thinking of the coach. You're thinking of McDaniel,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I didn't say
Yeah.
McDaniel. Yeah,
Okay.
but bunch of kind of reunions, I guess we could say. Um,
Yeah.
and these teams have traded a couple times. Um, so some coming home parties for Mostert and Wilson. How do you think the backfield performs, and do you think the Niners pull this one out at home?
Yeah, I mean, they've been just playing so when you think of the 49ers, you think gritty. You think strong, you think solid, maybe not flashy, but they're going to give you a tough game every time. They're not going to lay down. They're not going to lay an egg. It's not going to be 21-3 the other team. It's just not going to happen. If you're going to beat the San Francisco 49ers now versus early in the year, now you're going to have to play your best game. Going to Santa Clara, riding a high. Miami looking great this year, in this awesome AFC East battle with the Bills. Um, the Dolphins need it because if they kind of start going the other way, the Bills are going to take that division right over. But the 49ers, they've been just playing so solid, so gritty, so good. It's really hard to go against them here, and I think that Shanahan is gonna show McDaniel that he's the better coach in this one, and he's gonna outcoach him a little bit. I think that it's a high scoring affair, maybe 31-28, something like that. Great game, great watch. Out of all the 4 o'clock games, this has to be the one you're tuning into. If I got the 49ers.
Yeah, I like this one too. And I like the 49ers when you think of a team that might be able to contend with the Dolphins offense. Um, I like the 49ers. You think about Charvarius Ward, who's been playing out of his mind at corner.
Yeah,
He used to match up with Tyreek Hill in practice all the time. So you could see him on Tyreek. They've got playmakers on the back end, even if not necessarily top end talent. Hufanga, um,
he's
tough
turning into
injury.
a star, by the way.
Yeah, man. The probably the best coached defense in the league, arguably. But I mean, the way that front plays, Armstead, Bosa's a freak. Warner, it's a defense that has the ability to cover a lot of ground on the back end and create pressure up front with four or less. And I think that's kind of the recipe for this Dolphins team is you got to keep up with that speed. You got to affect that speed with physicality. And you got to be able to create pressure. So I like the 49ers as well at home to kind of keep rolling, and that'll solidify their lead on the division, keep them a game ahead of Seattle the way our predictions look. We've also gotten that 3 o'clock window. Cincinnati hosting KC, 7-4 Cincy, the 9-2 1 seed KC.
Wow. I didn't even see this game, so now I don't know who I'm going to watch.
Right?
That's amazing. That's a great game. I mean, that had to be circled. That had to be circled all year for Kansas City. Right when the odds makers and the schedule makers made this game a thing, after losing in the AFC Championship game, after being up 10 points, at home, that was such a heartbreaking loss for them to get the ball first in overtime. The Mahomes throw the pick, and um, honestly, man, I got Kansas City just rolling on this hot streak they've got going on since losing to the Bills 24-20 in that awesome game in Kansas City. They haven't lost. Counting the bye that they had, 6 straight weeks without a loss. They go into this place, hostile environment, yes, but they've had this game circled. They want to beat these guys. They feel
Hmm.
that they maybe were shortchanged last year. So I think that they're better. They're just a better football team. And if the Bengals are going to win this game, they're going to have to play their absolute best game. And I don't think they do. I think the Chiefs win this one.
Hmm. Yeah, just nightmares of Jamar Chase jump cuts and running horizontally and weaving in and out of defenders. I mean, there were multiple plays in that game where it was just like, why is he still up? What's happening?
Right.
Um, he may still be questionable.
Mm,
Um, but T. Higgins showed out, and I think they keep it pretty close as well. I think the Cincinnati offense is able to contend, but I'm gonna go Kansas City as well. Um, just knocking Cincy down a peg a little bit. I don't think they'll have their full arsenal, and even at full strength, I think it's a real toss up on the offensive side. So next we've got Chargers at Vegas. The 4-7 Raiders host the 6-5 Chargers, who are still trying to get into the playoff picture right now.
yeah. I've just like been looking at like these games we've been picking. I've been taking way too many favorites. So I am gonna go with Vegas here at home. Probably a little bit of a surprise, but as I said, I got the Pats taking over the seventh spot over the Chargers. So if that's gonna happen, the Chargers are gonna have to lose some of these, tough games,
Mhm.
or games that they're, supposed to win, if you will. So I got the Raiders at home. I think they played much better at home than they do on the road. However, they had an awesome win last week in overtime where Josh Jacobs kind of took over the game. Jacobs now kind of playing like a top 3 to 5 running back in the league, taking a lot of weight off Derek Carr's shoulders, and Josh McDaniels knows now kind of what to do with his offense if you have
Yeah.
such an elusive and elite runner in the backfield. So I think that the Raiders win, and I think it's really high scoring.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be a shootout. That's where my money's at for sure.
Okay.
And I actually was gonna go Vegas as well because I don't think the way Josh Jacobs is playing juxtaposed to the weakness up front for the Chargers, I think that's a recipe for disaster, and I think they're gonna be able to run on this team a lot. Um, and I think you're gonna see Herbert in some catch-up ball, and that's when points get on the board. So yeah, I think it's a
Sure.
a shootout, but I think the Raiders are able to dictate some tempo and stay in the driver's seat in this one. I actually have another upset on this next one. I'll go first. I like the Colts to beat Dallas in Dallas
Whew.
on Sunday night,
Wow.
just just kind of because.
Yeah.
Because I think that Colts team is just going to keep it close. First of all, um, and they've got some playmakers on defense to force some mistakes. They've got the Stephon Gilmore to throw on CD Lamb if you want to. Um, so I think they have some advantages from a matchup perspective, and I think Matt Ryan is able to play close to mistake-free football. And
Mhm.
anyway, I think it's closer than it seems like it should be. And for that reason, I'm actually going to go with picking the Colts on this one.
Yeah. I mean, in that Minnesota blowout game, um, as we said, it's not like Dalvin Cook didn't have a good game. It's just they couldn't run with him because they were down by so much. But he
Hmm.
was like over 70 yards within like, I don't know, a few carries. I mean, he was running really well. It's just that when you're down by 20-3 early on, you can't keep running because you're going to waste too much clock.
That Dallas
So
front is so light.
thinking about that, I think that Jonathan Taylor could definitely have a big game. Which obviously, as it happens that Dak is on the bench more, and not having the ability to throw for 350 yards. But the thing about this Dallas team this year is that I don't think that he has had to do everything for them to win football games. I think that he's been good. Oh, there we go. I think that he's been good,
Yes,
but I
Zach, the
think that
Colts this week.
he hasn't had to do everything that for them to win games. I think that there's that awesome defense they have, and the next coming of Lawrence Taylor and Micah Parsons is coming. Matt Ryan's gonna get sacked a few hundred times in this game. And Micah's gonna be on them, and all these guys that were all over Kirk Cousins. I mean, they're scary. Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, they're gonna look. He's gonna look the same. And so, even though the Colts might, keep the ball out of Dak's hands for a majority of this game, I think the Cowboys kind of take over early on, so that the Colts don't really have that opportunity to go up at any point. So I got the Cowboys.
Yeah, and they should, but I'm thinking,
Gotta take some
I
offense.
just got a feeling. I looked at this game like 2 days ago, and I was like, I feel like the Colts are gonna win
Hmm.
that. The Monday nighter is Tampa Bay hosting the Saints.
Yeah,
4-8 Saints
5-6 Tampa.
in the 5-6 Bucks. Yes, yep.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, just because the Saints always play the Bucks tough, and the Bucks aren't playing so well. Coming off a tough loss to Cleveland. Just because it's at home and it's Tampa and it's Tom and he needs this win. He's in a division race that he probably never thought before the season he'd be in.
Hmm.
With Atlanta too. It's not even. Um, I just think that with everything that's going on now with New Orleans and their inability sometimes to just put points on the board, like last week.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's that old mantra where you get shut out, you play a lot better the next week because you were so embarrassed or whatever. But I don't really think that applies here, just because of the Buccaneers needing this game, and obviously Atlanta being in a game this week where they can win, and obviously that would tie the division. Tampa's going to play well. Obviously, not going to put up crazy points because they haven't done it all season. But I just think that their defense will kind of neutralize Andy Dalton and their offense to the point where Tom doesn't need to do all that much to win the game, and I think Godwin goes over 100 again.
Yeah, I like Tampa Bay as well. The Saints injuries right now are actually pretty tough. Eric
Yeah,
McCoy, their starting centers on IR. Questionable for this game are Marshawn Lattimore, Deontay Hardy, Bradley Roby,
mm.
PJ Williams. So that's corners 1, 2, and 3.
Oh boy,
Um, Paulson Adebo will be healthy, but Pete Werner, who's actually played really well at linebacker, Alvin Kamara, Peyton Turner, starting edge. Like, probably most of them will play, but there could be some real impact starters off the field for the Saints as well. So I'm
yeah.
gonna go Tom and the Bucks to bounce back, and that is the last game we have on the docket. Thanks everybody who joined us. Please take the time to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Would really help us out. And if you enjoy, come back next week. Will be Tuesday next week. Should be the regular show, and we should be joined by our esteemed colleagues Meg Hall and Chris Lewis. Hopefully, anyway. And we will see you guys then. Thanks, Nick. Have a good night.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right. I'm still stuck in here, though. Oh, here it is. All right. Thanks, everyone.